Anyone can improve his ability to generate good ideas if willing to be a little more purposeful in how to approach the creative process. If I had one takeaway from that book, that would be it. Today we're starting a new series, kind of a book club series where I talk about cool books that I read or listened to. And today we're talking about The Accidental Creative by Todd Henry, a book that I just finished listening to. At first I wasn't sure because I thought it was going to be one of these books where the main idea is just that everybody's a creative and you just have to find your inner creative, which I think that should be a tweet, not a book. But I was really surprised it wasn't. It was actually a really good book with a lot of really cool stories to back up his interesting points, and he had a lot of actionable tips. Like the phrase that I said earlier might suggest, this book is really more about how to approach the creative process in a more purposeful way. And I found 5 key sort of areas to focus on. The first one is focus, then we have relationships, then we have energy, stimuli, and last but not least, time. Let's talk about focus first. The first step is to clarify your goals. Know exactly what you need to do, what you have to focus on. And one of the interesting things he talks about is to separate urgent tasks from important tasks. Urgent things are always tasks that are in the present moment. They have to be done now, or the consequences will be lived now as well. And then you have the important tasks, which are usually things that we tend to forget. So those are things that you can take a longer time to accomplish, and they also bring consequences much further in the future. And sadly, we tend to forget them and just focus on the urgent things, which might not be so important. When you have a task, try to think of, is it important? Is it urgent? Is it both? If a task is both urgent and important, that's something you need to focus on for sure. If it's urgent but not important, it's probably something that that someone just dedicated to you. And you could do the same, or you can try to do it if you want to. There are also things that aren't important and aren't urgent. Things like maybe reading a book or binging The Office. That you can just reschedule or do it in your free time. And you have the things that are important but aren't urgent. Those are the ones that you really want to make sure you don't forget about. Things like saving up for retirement. Next subject is relationships. That was something I found really, really interesting. I think it's something I've always kind of thought about in the back of my head, but I've never did anything for it. The author says to create creative circles. So have friends that are all creatives and meet every now and then to talk about your projects, new ideas, and try to find. You can try to find new ideas as a group. And that's something I actually lived when I was studying in design. At some point I had a car accident and couldn't go to school, and I was really, really missing those lunch times where we were just throwing ideas at each other and just brainstorming together. Having a circle like this will also hold you accountable. So when you talk about a new project, your friends will remind you to work on it. The author also says to have a core team, so a team of people with different perspectives, and that way when you have a new idea, you can test it with different people. The key here is really to have diversity, so you want people that will show different opportunities and will highlight your blind spots. The next subject is energy. Todd Henry says to manage your energy rather than your time. I actually do both. I won't go too in depth into that. I made a video if you want to check it out. I'll leave a link in the description as well. But basically we have a limited amount of energy as well as a limited amount of time. So managing both together, thinking of like what times you have peak energy or lower energy. That's how I manage my life. So managing both together like that, it's what produced the best results for me. I do somewhat agree with the author, however, if I had to choose only one of those 2 methods, I would manage my energy as well. So that way you can avoid burnout and you can know when you have the energy to do X, Y, and Z. Well, even then, I'm still going back to managing my time and my energy together. I guess that just proves my point. Another super interesting thing the author talks about is not separating work from life, because every single thing you're going to do is going to take energy. So you need to manage both together. That's something that I've always done. I've always had a hard time managing kind of work-life balance. I just did both together, and I think it was nice to feel validated for once. The next subject is stimuli. So basically, Todd Henry talks about kind of the concept of you are what you eat, but for creative processes. I also made a video on this subject if you want to check it out. So he says that if you want to be more creative, you need to manage what you're listening to, what your inputs are, and you really want to curate those inputs. And he also says that it depends on what you do. Like, I'm a web designer, so consuming things about web and stuff like that makes sense. If I'm consuming like The Office, watching The Office, that won't really be useful for me. But if you're a comedian, well, maybe that binging The Office makes sense for you. Maybe it'll give you more ideas. Last but not least, time. So he says that time is the currency of productivity, which I think is a really interesting concept we can all agree with. And he says to be really careful where you spend your time and try to be more, he says to spend your time effectively rather than just efficiently. While those words are both really similar, efficiency refers to how well something is done, whereas effectively is how useful it is. A good example is a car. So a car is really effective at bringing people from one point to the other, but it's not super efficient because it takes a lot of fuel. He also had a really cool idea to just block some time every day to just play, learn, and tinker. That was one of my 10 tips in the video that I made on how to live a better life. He also brought the idea of dying empty, which I think he got that idea from another book. But the idea is basically to die without having any unfulfilled dreams. If you're interested in creativity, check out this video that I made on the creative diet, where I go more in depth into how our stimuli affect our creativity. Let me know your thoughts on this first book club video, and let me know if you have any ideas as to what book to review next. And have a good day.